This Friday, I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah Sellers is on assignment. We begin this hour with that attack on France's high-speed rail network. It's causing massive travel disruptions just as the Paris Olympics get started, with the opening ceremony now just hours away. France's rail operator says its network was targeted by vandals overnight in a coordinated arson attack that damaged its facilities in a number of locations. It's estimated that 800,000 travelers will be affected by the disruption over the coming weekend as crews race to repair the damage. Hundreds of passengers were seen stranded at one of Paris's main stations, waiting for updates after many trains were either canceled or delayed. The attack is a last-minute blow to Paris's preparations for tonight's Olympics opening ceremony. Thousands of people were expected to travel to the event by train. NBC News international correspondent Kelly Kobiea joins us now with more on this developing story. Kelly, good morning. So bring us up to speed on what authorities are saying about this attack, how it's impacting the rail network. Any word on who might be responsible?
Well, Joe, the Paris prosecutor has opened an investigation and said the organized crime unit is taking the lead. But so far, no one has taken responsibility for this. There's no indication of terrorism at this stage, but it is early. The attacks have paralyzed much of the country's high-speed rail network, just as hundreds of thousands were set to travel today to kick off their summer vacations, as well as travel to Paris for the Olympics. The French transport minister said it happened at 4 in the morning, that this was a series of coordinated attacks affecting the Atlantic, the North, and the East fast train lines. The head of the rail network in France, SNCF, called it a massive attack, saying that fiber optic cables at 3 locations were set on fire. Those cables connected to signal boxes and other infrastructure. He said one attack was foiled, an attack on the southwestern line, but the other lines are pretty much paralyzed. He said the attacks were premeditated, coordinated, and with the intention to cause massive disruption to the rail network. And of course, this comes on the opening day of the ceremony. The ceremony just hours away now. Security is extremely tight in Paris and getting tighter. The head of police in Paris said police are now reinforcing security at train stations in the city. Joe.
Kelly, do we have any idea how this is going to impact the opening ceremony? And do officials hope they can get things up and running quickly?
Well, the SNCF says they are working very quickly to try to fix the damage, but they said it's likely going to take a couple of days through the weekend anyway. But Olympic organizers say the opening ceremony will go ahead as planned. Here's what the French sports minister said a short time ago.
We're still in the process of analyzing all the impacts, assessing what we're going to implement as solutions, because it's going to have impacts also over the weekend. And we want this not to jeopardize the quality of the experience for the athletes and for the spectators. So it's a huge work in terms of crisis management, but we were prepared for that. You know, we had prepared for all scenarios.
And they have blanketed Paris with security. 45,000 police officers and gendarmes, including 650 specialist officers from France's elite tactical units. There's even a new army battalion securing a military zone along the Seine, Joe. All
right, so Kelly, putting this incident to the side, what can we expect from tonight's opening ceremony? I know folks here in the States are getting very excited. So what do organizers have in store for us?
It's going to be pretty spectacular. I mean, for the first time, it won't take place in a stadium. And another first, it's actually open to the public, expected to draw the biggest crowd ever. 100 boats carrying more than 10,000 athletes cruising down the Seine past some of Paris's most famous landmarks, including the partially restored Notre Dame Cathedral and the Louvre. And LeBron James and Coco Gauff will be flag bearers for Team USA. Lady Gaga and Celine Dion, both rumored to be performing tonight. And Joe, I, and probably you as well, will be among the 1.5 billion people around the world tuning in tonight.
Wow, I cannot wait. All right, Kelly, thank you so much. Appreciate you kicking us off this hour. With the opening ceremony set to kick off soon, and then so many events taking place outdoors, we thought, hey, let's see what the athletes should expect weather-wise for the opening weekend of these games. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with a look at that forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you. So exciting. Unfortunately, I wish I had better news. We are looking at the chance of rain. We have a big storm system across Europe that is bringing the threat for rain for the opening ceremony, the Parade of Nations, and then tomorrow, and then things start to improve a bit. So we'll look ahead towards that 7-day forecast. But first, we are looking at that large storm system with that trailing cold front. You can see UK is socked in with the clouds, northern France as well. That includes Paris, Germany, looking at some rain right now. So we're looking at rain across and at least lots of cloud cover across Europe as we go throughout the next couple of hours. So that rain is slowly moving to the south and east of Paris, but we have drizzle and we do have the threat for showers and even some heavier downpours through midnight tonight. So something to keep in mind because we have a big extravaganza plan, something different than we've ever seen. And I'm sure, are hoping that we're not going to get lots of rain, but we do have the chance for some showers. It will be warm with temperatures in the 70s, 7:30 p.m. Paris time is when that opening ceremony starts. 1:30 p.m. Is when we can expect it. And the coverage begins, by the way, at noon. Very, very exciting. Now, look at the 7-day forecast because, unfortunately, we do have a lot of events happening on Saturday as well. And we are looking at the chance for light rain throughout the day. Temperature is not bad, though. I think athletes would be happy with temperatures in the low 70s. And then we start to dry out, but then we start to warm up as well as we head towards the end of the weekend. On Sunday, we're looking at dry conditions, mostly sunny, temperatures in the 80s, and then we start to warm up. This is when it gets a little bit dangerous by Tuesday and Monday. We're looking at temperatures in the upper 80s, sunny and hot, but dry. Still dry on Tuesday with sun and clouds, temperatures in the 90s. Then by Wednesday, we're looking at a front that's going to bring back the chance for some thunderstorms. That creates tricky conditions when you bring lightning into the forecast. Still warm with temperatures in the 80s, and then by Thursday, looking really nice, temperatures in the low 80s. I think athletes wouldn't mind that with partly cloudy skies. But, Joe, this is something we're going to watch over the next several hours because, unfortunately, this ceremony is going to be so exciting, so different than what we've seen. But we do have the chance for some showers in the forecast.
Might be a little wet, too. All right, Michelle, we're going to check back with you in a moment with the U.S. forecast. We'll see you in a second. You can tune into the opening ceremony tonight on NBC and streaming on Peacock, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 Central. Turning now to Washington, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has wrapped up his controversial visit to Capitol Hill, part of his push for continued U.S. support in the war with Hamas. Yesterday, the Prime Minister met with both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in two separate meetings a day after that fiery address to Congress. Harris echoed the president on the need to end the war and bring the hostages home.
It is time for this war to end. And end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination.
The mood on Capitol Hill was tense throughout the prime minister's visit. Several Democratic lawmakers protested the speech. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian-American woman serving in Congress, brought these signs to Netanyahu's address. She was one of several lawmakers speaking out against his visit. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in a social media post, said that Netanyahu's presence was, quote, the worst presentation of any foreign dignitary invited and honored with the privilege of addressing the Congress of the United States. And outside the walls of Capitol Hill, thousands gathered to protest Netanyahu's conduct in the war against Hamas. Police clashed with demonstrators as some burned American flags and raised Palestinian flags in their place. We have a team joining us this morning to break down this historic visit, including NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist, along with NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez, who's in Tel Aviv. Aaron, let's start with you. So Netanyahu met with both President Biden and VP Harris yesterday. What did we hear came out of those meetings, and how did the White House stage manage this moment with Netanyahu, given that Harris now is expected to become the official nominee in just weeks, and Mr. Biden is, in essence, a lame duck president with about 6 months left in his term?
Yeah, Joe, I think stage manage is the right word to use here. Look, it's not unusual for both the president and vice president to meet with a visiting head of state separately. That's something that happens. The difference now is that we're paying attention more to what the vice president is doing, obviously, now that she is the candidate for president coming out of this administration. The other thing that's different here is that the vice president is the one who made the statement. That is a part of the careful choreography that the White House is now having to do The president and the White House are very much in the mindset that there is one president at a time in this country. That's something we heard repeatedly as that transition from the Trump administration to the Biden administration was happening. And so in this instance, they wanted to make sure that President Biden had his time to meet with the prime minister, that they were able to spend this time together and have a conversation about the things you noted there. The readouts from both the president and vice president indicated they talked about the need for getting a deal done, for arriving at a ceasefire and getting hostages out of Gaza, as well as getting more help into the people of Gaza who are still suffering. And so that was really the what came out of both the meeting with the president and the vice president. There wasn't much daylight in the readouts that we saw, Joe, in terms of what they discussed and the importance of pressing Prime Minister Netanyahu to get the deal finished as soon as possible.
So, Raf, we know Netanyahu's speech was met with major protests here in the U.S. How did folks in Israel respond?
So, Joe, Israel is a politically divided country, just like the United States. To Netanyahu's supporters on the political right of this country, it was a reminder of Netanyahu's strengths, that he is a man who presents himself as the only Israeli political leader with the stature to command respect in Washington, who can address a joint session of Congress for nearly an hour in perfect English, receive 50-plus standing ovations in the course of it. But to many of the hostage families, Joe, there is deep frustration that the prime minister did not have very much to say at all about getting to a deal to bring their loved ones home after nearly 300 days in Hamas captivity. The father of one of the American Israeli hostages said that it was basically political theater, that this was Netanyahu showing off to a domestic political audience. Remember, he is way down in the polls. Even some people on the right, his natural political supporters, blame him for the failures leading up to the October 7th terror attack. So the hostage families wanted to hear more about bringing their loved ones back, and no one in this country really heard much detail about the future of Gaza, who is going to govern it after this war, and crucially, who is going to pay for the absolutely massive reconstruction effort that is going to be needed.
So, Aaron, you mentioned the ceasefire deal. Just where do we stand with the negotiations right now? And we know that here, families of the hostages met with Netanyahu at the White House. How are they reacting to all this?
Well, Joe, we didn't get much detail either about where exactly the negotiations stand at this point. We know that there had been a sort of a pause while the prime minister was out of the country and visiting here in the States. The understanding that we have from the White House is that part of the purpose of the meeting between the president and the prime minister was to talk about filling in the gaps, as the White House phrased it, to get a final hostage deal done. And so there's an expectation now that there will be some movement or continued movement in making sure that that happens. We did hear from the families that met with the president. There were about 12 people who met with the president and prime minister for about an hour in the White House. Met with them together at the same time. And the indication we got from the families after that meeting was that they felt as though they got a commitment from both the president and the prime minister that they understand the urgency of the moment, is the phrasing that some of the families used in talking about the meeting they had with the president and prime minister. They also said that they feel optimistic, more optimistic than perhaps they have since the very beginning, since the first time there was a deal that got some of the hostages out of Gaza. And so those are indications, Joe, that there is some movement happening. The signs may be good, but obviously, as we've heard over and over again, it's not done. The deal's not done until the deal is done.
And speaking of hostages, we should note Israeli forces say they have recovered the bodies of 5 hostages from tunnels in Han Yunis. Aaron, one more thing before we let everyone go. Netanyahu is now expected to meet with Trump later today at Mar-a-Lago. Any details about what those two are expected to talk about?
Listen, this is a relationship that has suffered some damage, right? We know that right after President Biden was elected, as he was taking office, the prime minister congratulated him on his win, and former President Trump said that Netanyahu could have stayed quiet. He was upset that the prime minister took the opportunity to endorse President Biden or to recognize President Biden's win when he did. And so both of these men now have an interest in trying to make sure that they can mend fences to some extent. There is obviously a possibility that former President Trump would be president again, and so the prime minister has an interest in making sure that their relationship can see some stability again. And the president has an interest in looking as though he can stand on a world stage and that he can be a statesman and a diplomat again. And so that's part, I think, of what this meeting between the two will be about later on today, Joe.
All right, Aaron Gilchrist, Raf Sanchez, thank you both. This morning, Vice President Harris is getting big-time support from some big-name Democrats in her presidential bid.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me.
It's a video released today that shows former President Barack Obama calling to pledge his support to the vice president, noting that his wife Michelle is also endorsing Harris. Aides to Obama and Harris have discussed having them appear together on the campaign trail at some point, according to 3 sources familiar with those discussions. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has the latest on the race for the White House.
Vice President Harris welcoming an on-stage showdown with former President Trump, accusing him of backpedaling from his previous commitment to a September debate.
I'm ready to debate Donald Trump. I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage, and so I'm ready. Let's go.
Just this week, Mr. Trump said he'd be willing to do more than one debate with Ms. Harris, but appeared to balk at the current plan.
I agreed to a debate with Joe Biden. But I want to debate her, and she'll be no different because they have the same policies.
Their head-to-head is quickly heating up. New polling shows the vice president has narrowed Mr. Trump's advantage over President Biden. The race effectively a toss-up. On the economy, Harris slamming the former president's proposals as tax breaks for billionaires.
America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back. We are not going back.
Mr. Trump attacking the vice president.
She's the most radical person probably that we've had in office, let alone the office of the presidency.
In Charlotte, casting aside his promise from last week's Republican convention that he'd strike a more unifying tone.
You can't be too nice. You really can't be. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. Is that okay?
It comes as President Biden detailed his decision to drop out of the race.
I revere this office, but I love my country more.
Discussing his desire to unite the country by passing the torch to a new generation.
There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
In this election, we each face a question.
The Harris team now running with its first campaign video. Set to the Beyonce song, Freedom. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is facing new backlash for his past criticism of Democratic leaders, including Ms. Harris, for not having children.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
Hollywood star Jennifer Aniston posting, "All I can say is, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day." And the second gentleman's first wife, Kirsten Emhoff, praising the vice president as a co-parent to the Emhoff children. "I love our blended family and am grateful to have her in it."
We are in the early days of the Harris campaign, but they're already embracing a very different approach in both style and strategy. Stylistically, the vice president is a younger candidate embracing pop culture and appealing to younger voters who had been less enthusiastic about President Biden. But also perhaps strategically, a different electoral map. The Harris campaign hoping her candidacy will mobilize different demographics, including Southern black voters in states like Georgia, where Vice President Harris will head early next week. Back to you.
Peter, thank you so much. One of the big questions that remains in the presidential race is which candidate is going to get the support from voters who once backed Nikki Haley. With this dramatic shift in the race, will they stick with the Republican Party or give VP Kamala Harris a chance? Well, NBC News talked to a group of Haley voters on Tuesday night, just 2 days after President Biden stepped aside and endorsed Harris as his successor. Let's bring in NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray to walk us through what they said. Mark, good morning. So what did the group have to say about a Trump-Harris matchup?
Yeah, Joe, NBC News was able to observe a focus group of 14 different Haley voters who voted for Nikki Haley during the primary season. And some of them actually had some nice things to say about Vice President Kamala Harris. Some of them had some really tough things to say about her. But what was really interesting was that all of them said they wanted to actually hear more, that she isn't really defined for them. And that's going to be a challenge for the Harris campaign over the next 3.5 months. And overall, when it comes to their vote support, Joe, you ended up having 3 of these Haley voters who said that they'd vote for Kamala Harris, about 5 or 6 who said that they'd vote for Donald Trump, and the rest who ended up saying they'd vote third party or not vote at all.
Interesting. All right. So we know for these Haley voters, as well as so many of the so-called double haters, age a big factor in the race between, well, President Biden and Donald Trump. On Election Day now, there's going to be an 18-year gap between Harris and Trump. So how important of an issue is age now for this group?
Yeah, Joe, this was a question that came up in the focus group because we do have that new dynamic now of Joe Biden not being in the presidential race. And there were really some interesting answers. Take a listen to what the focus group respondents had to say.
So let's talk about the age issue for a moment. Now that Biden is out of the race, is it persuasive for Democrats to argue that Trump, at the age of 78, would be the oldest person ever inaugurated if he won? That his age is a legitimate concern, and that it's time for a new generation of leaders to take over. Show of fingers. Who thinks this is a persuasive argument?
Can I put up half a finger?
I want to.
There's components that I agree with, but other components I'm like, no, that's hogwash.
Wait, hold on a second. What, Audra, tell me very quickly in the interest of time, what part do you agree with in all of that?
I agree it's time for new, younger leadership.
Because they were both too old in the first place, and we do need a new generation of political leaders.
I mean, I look back and the world's different than 10 years ago. So I can't imagine the world that they were growing up in, that they think they know, that they've been separated from for so long, like a Trump or a Biden. And just the topics and all the issues are so much different, and they have to be handled so much differently because they're so used to a lens and a political philosophy that just kind of needs to change with the time.
Yeah, so Joe, as you ended up hearing, age is a factor, but not that big of a factor. And overall, one of the biggest takeaways I had from this focus group that was conducted after so many big events, like the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the Republican convention, Joe Biden leaving the presidential race, is that how a lot of voters' perceptions about this presidential race haven't changed despite all the upheaval that we've seen.
Amazing. All right, Mark Murray, thank you so much. Okay, so earlier we brought you the weather for Paris. Let's take a look at what to expect on this side of the Atlantic. The south is going to see heavy rain, while in the Midwest, temps are going to soar into the 90s. Let's get your morning news now forecast with Michelle Grossman. Hey, Michelle.
Hey there, Joe. Yeah, you have that right on both points because we are looking at that continued unsettled south. We're looking at showers and storms. Some of these showers and storms could drop heavy rainfall. So we're looking at the chance for some flooding also, and that includes flash flooding. This is what radar looks like right now. You can see those darker returns, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. So throughout portions of Louisiana and eastern Texas into Tennessee and then along the Carolinas. And that's going to be the theme over the next several days into the weekend as well, unfortunately. Through the south along the Gulf Coast, the southeast, the Carolinas could see some heavy rain. It is all due to this cold front that is triggering these showers and storms. So another unsettled day, another unsettled weekend. The good news is the severe risk is low. We're not worried about severe weather, although we could see some gusty thunderstorms. The bigger problem with these storms would be flooding in spots as we are seeing these heavy downpours with lots of moisture in the air. And when we see these storms move through, they could bring some flooding conditions. By Saturday, we're looking at more scattered showers along the Gulf Coast and areas of rainfall entering the Midwest. Now, the Midwest today, the big story there is going to be the warmer temperatures, but we do have flood alerts for portions of eastern Texas. 10 million people impacted. Also included are the Carolinas, Myrtle Beach. You're included in that. Houston, Victoria, Corpus Christi under flood alerts. Where you see the red, that is a flash flood warning. That means we're seeing flooding happening right now, and that's going to be the case as we go throughout the day. It's going to move in from time to time, so just be careful as you head out and about on this Friday. Rainfall forecast, we're looking at a lot of rain. Where you see those brighter colors, once again, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain or expecting the heaviest rain. So along the Gulf Coast into the southeast and along the Carolina coast as well. Otherwise, a really nice day in the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic. Temperatures are going to be on the warm side, but very typical, very summer-like temperatures, and the humidity has dropped. So feeling really nice. Warm throughout the Midwest and Northern Plains. We're looking at temperatures into the 80s and 90s, above normal for this time of year. So we do have heat alerts there for Fargo, Mission, Casper, also Scottsbluff. And we are also concerned about some fire danger out west. But look at these temperatures, Joe, in the 80s in Minneapolis, 85, 95 in Omaha. So a warm one there today and also tomorrow. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.